Okay, so yesterday a federal jury found that Live Nation and Ticketmaster monopolized the music industry and overcharged music fans. This suit began in 2024 when the Department of Justice filed a suit against Live Nation and Ticketmaster under the Sherman Act because they are so obviously a monopoly. Unfortunately, Live Nation and Ticketmaster are still one entity as of now, but the outcome of the suit is still a huge step in the right direction, so let's go through the details. If you don't know why Live Nation and Ticketmaster are bad, the main idea is that Live Nation owns the overwhelming majority of music venues in the United States, and it requires that those venues use Ticketmaster for their ticket distribution. And this creates a system where artists are having to pay Live Nation to perform, and fans are having to pay Ticketmaster in order to see the shows, but all the money is leading into the same pot. The issue with this is that it leads to vicious price gouging, and if you've been to a mid to high popularity concert over the last couple of years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Last year, I went to a Kendrick Lamar concert, and I sat in the definition of nosebleed seats. This wall that you see behind me there is the wall that keeps people from falling 200 feet off the stadium. It's the very, very edge of the stadium, and I paid $250 for those seats, with $100 of that just being the random fees and whatnot that they tack on. And this was my view. I couldn't even see the gargantuan screens that are designed for people to see from miles and miles away. And don't get me wrong, I still had a great time. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but the point is it shouldn't be that expensive for those seats. It just shouldn't be that way. And this affects artists as well. Live Nation has been known to charge exorbitant prices for their venues, to lock venues and artists into these long-term exclusivity deals, to take cuts from merch, to take large cuts from vendors. And this, along with a variety of streaming issues, is a reason why your small to mid-level artists, maybe your Camps, your Jids, your Saint Motels, your Jesse Wells, maybe even your Claros and Phoebe Bridgers, probably don't make quite as much money as you think they do. And this is also why Taylor Swift, to her credit, was protesting Ticketmaster so heavily a few years ago, and it's also why Zach Bryan named his live album All My Homies Hate Ticketmaster. And if there were any doubts as to whether or not Ticketmaster and Live Nation knew what they were doing, in this settlement, a bunch of text messages were released from employees calling people stupid and saying that they almost feel bad for taking advantage of fans. And here we have an executive talking about the moat around the castle and the velvet hammer, where they were using their powers to punish concerts that wouldn't do business with them. And over here we have employees admitting that the prices were outrageous and talking about robbing them blind, baby. And quotes like these make the executives of Live Nation and Ticketmaster sound like these comically evil little goblins that are trying to take all of your fun and money away, which I guess they kind of are. And the prosecution put it very well by saying that what type of company uses this language? A monopolist who believes itself above the law. So like I said in the beginning, Ticketmaster and Live Nation are not split yet, but as part of the settlement, they got a lot of restrictions put on them. So let's go over what those are. So this is a 7-page term sheet that was produced in the settlement for the suit that goes over all the things that Live Nation and Ticketmaster will be required to do going forward. The first highlight here is that Ticketmaster is required to make it easier for tickets to be transferred. They can't make it overly difficult for you to swap your tickets from service to service or to resell your tickets if you need to. And it specifically states that the transfer process for any ticket resold on a secondary marketplace shall take place fully within the ecosystem, the website or the app of the primary ticket issuer, right? So there has to be a system within Ticketmaster that allows the users to rearrange and transfer their tickets. Over here, it bars Ticketmaster from forcing major concert venues, I would imagine stadiums and arenas, from entering into these exclusivity agreements where they have to have the majority of the tickets flow through Ticketmaster. It says here that it has to be up to the terms of the venue, with at least 20% of the venue's tickets not exclusive. And also this little snippet right here says that if they do want to enter into a fully exclusive agreement, the maximum is 4 years for that agreement. And then down here it says for any venues that Live Nation owns, they must allow the promoter for that concert or that event to distribute up to 50% of all primary tickets for that event through any primary ticketing marketplace. So they can't force these promoters to use Ticketmaster exclusively. Another little exciting note down here, Ticketmaster will cap its service fees in amphitheaters that Live Nation owns, operates, or controls at 15%. I'm assuming that amphitheaters will refer primarily to smaller venues, but it should make these smaller shows even cheaper for Live Nation events, so that's nice to hear. And then number 5 here also gives some leeway to artists, where basically Live Nation is forced to allow artists to rent amphitheaters regardless of whether or not they're using Live Nation for promotion. So Live Nation can't force the artists to use their promotional services. And then even more leeway to artists, so Live Nation can't force major concert venues into these agreements where they have exclusive or preferred forward access to that venue, right? So we have to let other companies in. And then important note here, they also have to waive any exclusivity rights that they were given under previous agreements with major concert venues. And then the last part here is that they're requiring Live Nation to pay out about $280 million, which is a lot smaller than you would think, to the variety of different states that were part of this lawsuit. And that number sounds even smaller when you realize that that's just $1.72 per ticket that was discussed in this suit. So not huge concessions there. So with this settlement, the federal government is essentially backing out of this case for now. Live Nation and Ticketmaster are still one entity, and it'll stay that way for a while, but we have a coalition of states that are continuing the suit after this with the end goal of splitting up Live Nation and Ticketmaster. But in the meantime, we should view this as good news. We're not all of the way there yet. It's going to be a long time before we are all the way there, but we have people who are fighting for this and who are finding success in this and who are pushing forward after this, which is great news. It's worth noting that Live Nation will almost definitely appeal to this, and we'll see how that goes, but nevertheless, this is good news for the music industry. So now we just need to go after streaming rights.